England has roughly 1,500 medieval castles. Most of them are rubble. Most of them are a stone arch, a heritage sign, and a car park. But some of them, and this is the part most people don't actually think about, are someone's house. Not a museum with a gift shop and a laminated floor plan. A house where someone this morning made tea in a kitchen that was cooking royal dinners before the Black Death arrived. Where someone last night slept in a bed that has been slept in by 15 generations of the same family. Where someone is living their daily life inside walls that were raised when England was still fighting France over who owned what. There are 10 castles in England built before 1400 that are still inhabited right now. Some are royal. Some are privately owned by families who have been there so long the concept of moving in doesn't really apply to them anymore. And by the time we get to entry 1, which involves a secret room, a conspiracy against a king, and a Roman villa hiding underneath the whole thing, the idea that a castle has to be empty to matter historically is going to feel like something you accepted without ever questioning it. A quick note on what counts here. These are structures with origins before 1400, still in use as residences today on English soil. Some are technically fortified manor houses, not military fortresses, and we'll get to why that distinction matters more than you'd think. Let's start. Entry 10, Skipton Castle, North Yorkshire. Built in 1090 by Robert de Romile following the Norman conquest, expanded significantly in the 14th century by the Clifford family, who held it for over 300 years. It sits at the top of the High Street in Skipton town centre, which means it is one of the best preserved medieval castles in England, and also just sort of there, next to a market in a town people drive through on their way to the Dales. The Cliffords rebuilt it after the English Civil War. It was one of the last royalist strongholds in the north, holding out for 3 years before surrendering in 1645. Lady Anne Clifford, who inherited it, spent decades restoring it almost entirely out of personal determination. Today it operates as a tourist attraction and is still privately owned. You can walk the full circuit of the towers. The yew tree in the inner courtyard was planted by Lady Anne herself in 1659. It is still there. Entry 9, Alnwick Castle, Northumberland. Most people know it as Hogwarts exterior from the Harry Potter films, or as the setting for Downton Abbey's exterior shots. What most people don't know is that the Percy family has owned Alnwick continuously since 1309, and their private archive, personal documents, letters, estate records, dates back to the 13th century and is still actively used by professional historians today. This is not a museum collection that was donated and catalogued. It is a family's personal paperwork, and it predates the printing press by over a century. Gutenberg didn't produce his first Bible until around 1455. The Percy family's archive starts before that, in a house people still live in. The Duke and Duchess of Northumberland use Alnwick as their primary residence. The castle has been continuously inhabited since the 14th century, and the archive sitting inside it is, in a very real sense, older than the idea of mass. Produced information. Entry 8. Windsor Castle, Berkshire. Yes, it is on the list. It has to be on the list because the detail most people don't know about Windsor isn't the size or the history or the 39 monarchs. It is the kitchen. Windsor's Great Kitchen is the oldest working kitchen in the country, serving dishes since the days of Edward III around 1360. And it has been in continual use for over 650 years, serving 32 of Britain's 39 monarchs. Same room. Same function, 6.5 centuries of cooking in one place. And then there is the detail inside that detail, which is the one that actually stops people cold. The clocks in the Great Kitchen are always set exactly 5 minutes fast to ensure the monarch gets their food on time. Nobody changed it. Nobody decided to modernize the system. A scheduling workaround from the 13th century is still running in that kitchen today, and the people using it don't question it, because at some point it just became the way things are done. That is Windsor. A working palace that has been continuously occupied since Henry I in the early 12th century, and it still runs on medieval logic. Entry 7, Arundel Castle, West Sussex. The Dukes of Norfolk have lived here since 1138, making it one of the longest continuous aristocratic residences in England. The castle was heavily damaged during the Civil War and substantially rebuilt in the 18th and 19th centuries, so it looks more Victorian Gothic than medieval from the outside. But the core of the structure, the motte, the keep, the shell, goes back to the 11th century. The current Duke of Norfolk still lives here. The castle opens to the public in the summer, and the private apartments occupy a portion of the building the public never sees. There is a 14th century Fitzalan chapel inside the grounds that is still used for Catholic worship by the family. It is one of the few private chapels in England that has maintained unbroken Catholic use since the Reformation, which is its own remarkable story. The detail that tends to land: the chapel is technically split between the castle and the adjacent parish church, with a wall running through it. So the family and the public have worshipped on opposite sides of the same building for centuries. Entry 6, Bamburgh Castle, Northumberland. On the northeast coast, sitting on a basalt outcrop above the North Sea, there has been a fortification on this site since at least the 6th century. It was the capital of the ancient kingdom of Bernicia. The current castle dates to the Norman period and was significantly rebuilt in the 11th and 12th centuries. It passed through various hands, fell into serious disrepair, and was purchased in 1894 by the industrialist William Armstrong, whose family restored it over several decades. The Armstrong family still lives here. Part of the castle is open to visitors, and part remains a private home. The thing about Bamburgh that most people miss is the location. There is no angle from which it looks like a place people actually live. It rises straight out of the rock above the beach, surrounded by sea on 3 sides. And on a grey morning it looks less like a residence and more like something a medieval king commissioned to remind people what power looked like. The family living inside it is, by any measure, doing something unusual. Entry 5, Sizer Castle, Cumbria. And this is where it starts getting strange. The castle was built as a manor house by Sir John de Broughton in 13th century. Wait, that is Broughton. Let me give you Sizer properly. The Strickland family moved into Sizer in 1239. That means they were already there when the Black Death arrived in England in 1338, over a century before the Wars of the Roses even started. They were there before the printing press, before Columbus. Before the Reformation, the family occupied Sizer for over 700 years. In 1950, they handed the house and estate to the National Trust, which most people assume means the family packed up and left. They didn't. The Stricklands still live there. Legal ownership transferred. The residents didn't. And here is the thing about Sizer that makes it unusual even by the standards of this list. It is technically not a castle. It is a grand country house built around a 13th century defensive Pele tower. It looks like a castle. It gets listed with castles. But the castle part is really just one tower that the rest of the house grew around over centuries. The label stuck because the structure was there first and the house came after. Entry 4, Broughton Castle, Oxfordshire, built in 13th century by Sir John de Broughton at the confluence of 3 streams, which created a natural moat. The house was sold in 1377 to William of Wykeham, Bishop of Winchester, and has remained in the same family since that time. That is the Fiennes family. Yes, related to the actor. They've been here since 1451. And this is the castle where, in the 1630, the first Viscount Say and Selle was quietly plotting against Charles I Fiennes, and his associates used the Providence Island Company as a cover for their illicit meetings to organize resistance against Charles I Fiennes, and men like Pym, Hampden, Lord Warwick, Lord Brooke, and Sir Henry Vane met in what they called the room that hath no ears. That room is still there. At the top of the tower, a literal conspiracy room inside a house people still live in today. In 1642, William Fiennes raised a regiment of blue-coated foot soldiers and 4 troops of horse for the parliamentarian army. He fought against the king. And then, when Parliament moved to execute Charles I Fiennes opposed it and withdrew from public life. The man who helped start the war drew a line at the execution. He later received a royal pardon. 1 building, 1 family, a conspiracy room, a civil war, a change of heart and a pardon. And then in 2021, Time Team excavators came in and excavated a Roman villa on the site. Recently discovered by metal detectorist and amateur archaeologist Keith Westcott, the site was inhabited 1,000 years before the medieval castle was even built. Broughton has layers that most castles can't match. I want to pause here for a second. If you are finding this as fascinating as I do, there is a whole video on this channel about English castles that survived the Civil War and what happened to the families inside them. Worth watching after this one. And if you haven't subscribed yet, do it now, because this is the kind of content we make regularly and the algorithm basically guarantees you'll miss it otherwise. Back to the list. Entry 3, Leeds Castle, Kent, not in Leeds, in Kent about 5 miles from Maidstone, sitting on 2 islands in a lake formed by the River Len. There has been a structure on this site since 857 AD, when it was a Saxon manor. The Norman stone castle dates to around 1119. It passed through royal hands. Edward I, Edward II, Henry VIII used it as a residence for his first wife Catherine of Aragon. And for much of its history, it was specifically associated with Queens of England, earning it the nickname the Ladies' Castle. It was privately owned for much of the 20th century and is now managed by a charitable foundation, which makes it slightly different from the other entries on this list. But it still functions as a venue and residence in the broadest sense. And the structure itself, the original Norman stonework, the lake, the layout remains. The thing about Leeds Castle is what it looks like. On a still morning reflected in the water, it looks less like a real place and more like something someone invented to explain what a castle is supposed to be. Entry 2. Now we're getting into the entries that are harder to process. Berkeley Castle, Gloucestershire. The Berkeley family has been here since 1153, when Robert Fitzharding rebuilt the Norman structure after it changed hands. The castle is the 3rd oldest continuously occupied castle in England, after the royal fortresses of the Tower of London and Windsor Castle, and the oldest to be continuously family-owned and occupied. It is where Edward II was imprisoned and almost certainly killed in 1327. The room where it happened is still there, still part of the building, still accessible. The castle survived the Civil War, was besieged in 1645, and the Berkeley family were allowed to keep it on the condition that they never repair the breach in the keep wall. That condition is still enforced today by the original Act of Parliament drawn up at the time. The wall is still breached by law because of a parliamentary order from 1645 that nobody has ever overturned. And then there is the bed. Berkeley Castle contains an antique 4-poster bed that has been identified as the piece of furniture remaining longest in continuous use in Great Britain by the same family. Experts in furniture history place its style within the time frame of 1560 to 1640. The presence of a coat of arms on the headboard ties it to the Stuart monarchy, and the part that most coverage misses entirely, far from being roped off into retirement. Like many pieces of historic furniture, John Berkeley and his wife Georgina still use the bed in the castle's great state bedroom. It is not a museum piece. It is not behind a rope. It is furniture. Furniture that has been slept in by 15 generations of the same family and is being slept in now. That is the detail that changes how you think about the word history. History is usually something that stopped. At Berkeley Castle, it didn't stop. Entry 1. Broughton is remarkable. Berkeley is remarkable. But this entry is the one that almost nobody processes properly when they hear it for the first time. We said earlier in this video that there was one entry where the story underneath the story is bigger than the castle itself. This is it. The mega loop from the beginning of this video. The idea that history at these places didn't stop closes here at a castle that contains a room designed for treason, a bed still being slept in, a family archive older than the printing press, and a kitchen that has been running since the 1300s on clocks deliberately set wrong. But the thing that pulls all of it together is simpler than any of those individual details. These buildings are not preserved. They are not maintained as exhibits. They are homes. The people inside them are not curators. They are residents. And that distinction between a place that is kept and a place that is lived in is the one that changes everything about how you understand what a medieval castle actually is. Most of what we call history is things that ended. These 10 castles are history that didn't end. It just kept going, quietly, with someone inside making coffee, locking the door, sleeping in a 400-year-old bed, and running a kitchen on clocks set 5 minutes fast, because that is how it has always been done. Drop a comment below with which one of these surprised you most. I am genuinely curious whether it is the bed, the conspiracy room, or the kitchen clocks, because those three tend to split people pretty evenly. And if you want to go deeper on any of these, the next video is right there. Watch it.